Hi there. It is time for my June wrap up. Wow, I keep forgetting the months. It's fine. We're used to it. So, this month I didn't have the best reading month. I've read significantly less books than in previous months. I think the lowest amount of books I read were January and February, because I did 5 books in January and 6 in February. And then I shot up to in double figures. And I've gone right back down this time. I have only completed 9 books. But that's fine. I'm not in a rush to read books. I just read based on my pleasure. This month was actually a month of mood reads, so that may have contributed. And it's interesting to see how little I get read when I have a mood read and I don't have a set TBR. We'll see how that goes. So I'm just going to talk to you about the books in the order that I read them, let you know. I also should probably let you know before we start, I had a significant increase in the number of DNFs this month. You'll see what I'm talking about. So, the first book I read this month was The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I read this as a buddy read with Brooke, and we were slightly disappointed. I don't think I was disappointed by the story. I thought the story was actually quite good, but I wasn't excited about it. And I think the reason is, and I will let this be clear, I don't have anything against Ruth Ware. This is actually the first book I've read by her, so I can't really comment. But this book was very, very hyped, probably in the last 2 or 3 months. Everyone that read it said it was amazing, they loved it, they thought it was one of the best books they've read. And then when we read it, we were quite disappointed. And I think the reason I was disappointed is because it had been hyped up so much. I had set so many expectations for what I thought this book was going to be, and I was just a bit let down. So maybe it's not really fair to give this book a 3-star, but at the time I did expect so much more, and I thought, well, it must be so really amazing because it's been so hyped up, and it just wasn't. So I gave it a 3-star rating. This story, if you do not know, follows a woman called Rowan who has been imprisoned for the murder of a child that she has been tasked with caring for. And the story then flashes back to show you how her arrest came about, what happened, and it's about her going to this house, taking a live-in nanny position, and then some sort of creepy things start happening in the house, leading to this final ending of her being arrested for the murder. And it's a very interesting story. There were parts where you was questioning who's behind it. Was it her? Did she do it? What's going on? But in the end, I just felt slightly let down. So it got a 3-star from me. So next, I read $10 Million Marriage Proposal by James Patterson and Hilary Lifton. I admit I was in a little bit of a reading slump at the start of this month. This was actually a struggle to get through. I finished it in one day. Obviously, it was tiny. But it was a struggle to get through it. I did want to put it down quite a bit. And this story is about women who see this big billboard that have been put up saying, for $10 million, marry me. And it's kind of like a weird dating show. They don't know who this guy is. The guy is not revealed to anybody who he is. It is literally just a case of they go through this audition process to see whether they're good enough. It's kind of like a dating game. It's really strange. And it's about, we follow the perspectives of 3 women who are entering this competition, either because they want to find love, either because they think, I might as well just give it a go, or because they want the money. And it's just a very interesting story. It's unique. It's quite unique. And it's quite different. I only gave this a 3-star though. I gave this a 3-star because I felt as though I'd predicted how it was going to end. And it didn't end that way, which is good because I don't like guessing the endings. But I did like my ending more. I feel as though this ending was just a bit too easy. And I was a bit like, oh, right. Okay. So I'm not disappointed, but I'm not in love with it. So it got a 3-star. And I struggled a bit. So next is a great book The Escape Room by Megan Golding. Now, I read this as a buddy read with Chloe from Chloe Reads Books, and I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was excellent. I thought it was well thought out. I thought the suspense was amazing. It kept me hooked. I cried. It was an excellent book. My only thing about it was, and I know it's such a tiny, tiny thing, but the book is called The Escape Room, so it's kind of a big thing. The book is The Escape Room. They were not in an escape room. They were in an elevator, and they got clues by a screen flashing up. Clues on the screen. Like, if this was actually based in a real escape room, I would have loved that. I would have loved the idea of them looking around for all of these clues. Instead, they were stuck in a lift and couldn't do anything until a message plopped up on the screen. And that it just took away the thrill of them running around looking, trying to find answers. And I just think had it had that element and actually had a justification for why it's called The Escape Room when it was not an escape room, I would have loved it more. And I know it sounds like such a small thing, but when you're basing the title on an escape room and you're not in an escape room, it's kind of annoying. So, 4-star though. I really did enjoy it. I thought it was great. It was just that teeny tiny little detail that I was not a big fan of. Next, we come to my first DNF of the month, and that is The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. Now, I think it may also have been my reading slump that contributed to this, but I just didn't like this book. This book follows a young girl that gets lost in, I think it's the Appalachian Trail, and she is listening on the radio about a sports guy. Tom Gordon is a sports player, and I think she kind of imagines him there with her, protecting her, but there's also some things in the forest that might be coming to get her. I wouldn't know. I didn't get to the end. But from where I got, it was okay. It just felt as though it took its time to get there. And at the time I was reading this, when I was in a slump, I was not in the mood. I wasn't sitting there thinking, it's fine, we'll get there eventually, take your time. I was thinking, get to the damn point or I'm putting you down. And it didn't get to the point, so I put it down. Which is a shame, because this is probably really interesting. I wanted to get more into Stephen King, and I didn't really think I'd actually ever end up DNFing a Stephen King, and I did. Also, this book was one of the books that I chose for picking a book based on its first line. This is actually the one Brooke rated second as the most interesting based on the first line. And I thought I was really excited to actually start and get through it. And it let me down. So it's a shame, but yeah. Next, we are on to the second DNF, and that is Mary Toft or the Rabbit Queen by Dexter Palmer. This is based on a true story about a woman that gives birth to dead rabbits. I can't even say it properly now. Yes, it came out as a hoax, but this is actually based on a true story back in the 1700s in England in a place called Godalming. And it was weird. It was a NetGalley arc. I requested it because I read it and I thought, that sounds so weird. I need to know who would come up with a story like that. So I requested it just so I could find out why. And then I found out it was based on a true story, and suddenly my interest in the book just went right down. Because I thought, oh, so it's not like someone's just so weird they've come up with this story. They've just kind of taken it from history. And I'm like, well, I'm not really interested in that. So I started reading it, didn't enjoy it, DNF'd it. And that was actually the first book I started reading for Galley-a-thon. And that was a shame, because I really wanted Galley-a-thon to get off to a good start. But my next book was The Apartment by K.L. Slater. And I enjoyed this book. It were good. It were fine. It got a 3-star rating from me. This is about a woman who basically, on her ass, she needs a place to stay. This man kindly offers her an apartment at a very discounted rate because she just seems like a really nice fit, and why wouldn't you help somebody in their time of need? So she doesn't say no to this offer because why would you? She goes in, and then weird things start happening. And obviously, I was kind of interested in that. But then there was also a secondary plot based on experiments. And I was like, well, I kind of want to know a bit more about that, because it was all about psychology, and I'd studied this particular experiment, and I was like, I kind of know what's going on. I feel excited to figure out how it's important. And there just really wasn't that. Like, it was important to the main story, but it took a very different turn than where I was expecting. And it was a very boring turn. And I was a bit like, oh, that's sad. But the story itself was actually quite interesting and actually quite good. But I don't think the ending was done well enough to justify a good rating. I feel as though it was just very segmented all the way through, because K.L. Slater wanted to link these two stories but wasn't sure how to do that. So it was just paragraph on this, paragraph on this, paragraph on this, paragraph on this. And I think if it had naturally flowed into the story more, it would have been a lot better. I mean, I can't judge. It's quite hard to write a book. Fair enough, I get it. But as a reader, it was just a bit like, I don't see what this has anything to do with the plot. It's not come into it at all. And then at the end, when it just kind of came into it, it was like, here's the answer. You're like, oh, right. Okay. But it was fine. It was fine. Honestly, give it a go. It's a good book. Just, it's not one I will reread. So 3-star rating. It's fine. 3 stars is a good rating. Okay, so next, I read The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. And this is a book I never actually thought I'd read, because I've kind of seen snippets from other booktubers, and I've seen snippets because we actually used some snippets of this for work, and I just thought, I'm not really that interested. It's fine, but it's cute, it's fine, you know, but it's not, I don't really care. And then my stepmom gave me her copy. She said, read it. So I sat down, I read it. I was done in about 20 minutes, and I loved it. I thought it was great. Gave it a 5-star. And then she said, this is a really good book. This is a book you can refer back to a lot. You need a copy of this book, but this is not a book you can buy. You have to be given it as a gift. So she then bought me a copy and gave me a gift. So I'm really glad, because I think it's really cute. And I'm going to keep it and refer back to it because I do think it's precious. And I found out you can actually buy prints of some of the artwork in here, so I may do that eventually. But anyway, great book, 5-star, would recommend. It's beautiful. That's honestly what I can say about it. It is beautiful. If you want something heartwarming, reassuring, but also kind of teaches you a really nice life lesson and makes you question yourself, your priorities, your mental health, this is definitely the way to go. So go for it. Give it a go if you have not already. You won't regret it. Next, we are back to DNFs. I DNF'd How Much of These Hills is Gold. Now, this was the oldest arc that I had ever had, and I didn't like it. I really wanted to. I don't know why I requested it. I think that I requested this because it was when I first discovered NetGalley, and I thought, oh no, my rating's so low, I won't get accepted for any, so I'll just request all of them. And I requested it, and then I got it, and then I didn't want to read it. And I think I got like 5% of the way in. I should have given it more of a chance, but I couldn't. It wasn't an issue with the story because I didn't read it. I got up to 5% and I just didn't like how it was written. And I just thought, I've got other books to get through for Galley-a-thon. I want to read books that I'm interested in. I didn't think this book was going to interest me when I started, so maybe I should just move on. So I did, and I feel quite bad about that, but at the same time, I'm so glad. And I'm so glad it's just gone. So, guilt's kind of going away. But that story was about 2 orphans whose father had just died in the night. So they strap him onto the back of a horse and take him out to the desert during the American Gold Rush to find a place to bury him. Bit weird, but you know, who am I to judge? But yeah, I didn't like it. DNF'd it. Sad about that. So next I read Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell. Now this is the latest arc by Lisa Jewell and I really enjoyed it. Like, I wasn't sure I would. When I first started the story, I thought it sounds interesting, it sounds good, but I think I'd just come off a couple of bad books, such as Mary Toft and How Much of These Hills is Gold. And I just thought, I'm not interested anymore. I'm tired. Also, this was like the fourth NetGalley book in a row. So fourth Kindle book in a row that I'd read that week. And I was like, I'm starting to get a bit bored of reading Kindle books now. I need a break. Because I get really bad migraines. So the idea of me reading on my Kindle for a week straight was quite impossible. So why did I join up to Galley-a-thon? I don't know. I was a glutton for punishment. But I did. And I actually really enjoyed it. It was actually so much fun. And I kind of rediscovered a love for Kindles that I never had before. And now I just keep reading Kindle books. I love it. But I thought this book was good. I thought it was really interesting. The story follows a young girl going missing. And the police automatically assume, and it's not just the police, everybody automatically assumes, it's the weird guy on the street because he's just the type who would do that, who would kidnap and kill a girl. And the story follows her narrative leading up to the event where she goes missing, the man's narrative of what happened before and after, and then a third narrative from a woman that lives down the street who has a connection to this girl through her husband and child and things like that. And it gets very interesting, and I didn't know where it was going to go. I was very intrigued to see where it was going to go. It was really good. I loved the ending. It got very tense. It just didn't blow me away. So I gave it a 4-star because it was a really, really good book. Chances are I will reread it, but it didn't change my life in any way. It was just kind of a run-of-the-mill thing. It was a bit different, I will admit. It was quite different. It was quite fun. But I wasn't, like, taken aback by it so much. So that's why it just didn't get a 5-star from me, because it was very good, but not great. I'm really scared that I'm making these books seem not good, and they really are good. So next, I finished off the City of Glass book that I started reading. I've been doing all of these as a buddy read with Mel from a book feed named Mel, and this is book 3 of The Mortal Instruments. I read this and I loved it. It took me so long to get through, so it made me question whether I actually wanted to give this a 5-star or not, because I thought surely if I enjoyed it, it wouldn't have taken me so long to get through it. But start of the month I was in a reading slump. Then I did Galley-a-thon, so I didn't pick this up because I was focusing on NetGalley books. And then when I finally picked it back up, I was like, yes, I'm into it. Let's go, 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 right till the end. And I really loved it. It was great. It was very action-packed, which is more than can be said for the other two. And I gave the other two a 5-star, so obviously this one got a 5-star rating. It's great. I'm really sad because every time I think of this book, I remember that I'm finishing this book. I'm done now with The Mortal Instruments. I am moving on now to The Infernal Devices, reading Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince and Princess. And then we're going back to The Mortal Instruments. But the idea of me not carrying on with these straight away, the idea of me having to say goodbye to Simon, Isabel, Clary, Jace, Alec, all of them, that makes me quite sad because I love these characters and I wasn't ready to let go. I cried so much in this book. 5-star all the way. So the next book that I read was Stranger in the Lake by Kimberly Bell. This was an ARC book. This actually came out at the start of the month and I really enjoyed this. I originally wanted to read it and get it done before it came out, but I was in a slump. I wasn't in the mood to read, so I didn't. And then I finished it at the end of the month, and I thought it was really interesting. This story follows a woman who finds her husband talking to a stranger in the street. They go home and celebrate, and the next morning she finds this woman who her husband was talking to the night before dead under the dock outside her house. Now, the husband had been married once before, and his wife was found dead under the dock a few years earlier. And the story follows people questioning, was it him? Did he have something to do with it? And this wife instantly saying, no, he's my husband. I trust him. I believe him. He would never do that. And then things start getting a bit questionable. She starts thinking, who do I trust? What do I think? Am I safe? And it was a really, really interesting story. I gave it a 4-star because I felt as though it was a bit predictable. Like, there were two main endings, I think. Is that what it is? Two main plot twist endings. And I guessed one of them. I didn't guess the second one, to be fair, so that was quite interesting. But I did guess one of them. It was a bit predictable. I called it from like the first 15% of the book what was going to happen. And I hate when I do that. I love when I do that because I'm like, yes, I'm right. But if a book's predictable, I'm a bit like, that's not great, is it? So I gave it a 4-star because I thought it was good. But the fact that I kind of guessed where the ending was going so early on. If I'd have guessed it after 50%, it'd have still been really good. It was just kind of leading me there. But guessing it so early on, it did kind of borderline unpredictable. Obviously, I won't spoil the ending and tell you why it was predictable, but it was a bit predictable. Then I got to my final DNF. Oh my god, I've DNF'd so many. That's 1, 2, 3. Is that 3? 4. I've DNF'd 4 books this month. And that is Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz. You can't see that. Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz. Now, I made a deal with a friend. She read my favourite James Patterson book. I read her favourite Dean Koontz book. She read and loved my favourite James Patterson book. I read and DNF'd her Dean Koontz book because I really didn't like it. I got so much under halfway. And I just thought, it's taken me 3 weeks and I'm not even halfway yet. I'm done. So I had to DNF it. And it made me sad because she read my book and she loved it. And I felt as though because she'd read it and got all the way to the end, maybe it was my responsibility to get to the end. But then I also thought, well, the difference is she liked it. I didn't. So I'm sure it's okay. And I do apologise for that. But at the same time, I didn't like it. I didn't want to carry on with it. I'm sorry, but that was it. Then, my final book that I read, and I'm so glad I read it, but I'm also not glad I read it because I didn't really like it as much as I wanted to read it, was The 10,000 Doors of January. I also tabbed it. I've never tabbed a book before, but I tabbed it. So this book, yeah, the plot was very, very good. I really enjoyed the plot. Like, the storyline was interesting. I wanted to read more about it. I wanted to know more about it. My issue is, it wasn't well written. Or it probably was. It was probably very well written. That's not a fair judgment. It was well written for people that like a lot of description. I know people say it's very flowery writing, but people said that after I bought the damn book. I kind of bought this because of the hype, and I thought, yep, I want to read it. I want to know. And then people was like, well, it's very flowery, it's very descriptive, it's very beautiful. And I'm like, I don't like that. Why are you doing that to me? I mean, the plot was really good. It just took its time getting into it. And I had a few issues. The orange tabs, if you can see them, are issues I took with the book. Pink are things I really liked about the book. Blues are time I cried. Yellow are shocking and important moments. And then green are parts that made me laugh. So it was a very mixed bag. Once I got into the story, because you'll see a lot of my issues came at the start. Once I got into the story, I really, really liked it. And I thought the narrative was so, so interesting. It just took its time to get there, and I was just sat there thinking, I don't really want to listen to this crap bit. Get me to the interesting bit. So I gave it a 3-star because I thought I had a lot of issues with the writing style, but I had a lot of positives with the plot itself. So I thought 50-50, it's kind of a fair judgment. So I went with the 3-star rating. Glad I read it, but also glad it's done because I'm really sad that I spent £11 on it, so I'm getting rid of it now. And those are the books I've read. So I had 4 DNFs and 9 reads. And of the 9 reads that I had, 6 of them were print books and 3 of them were ebooks. And in terms of my goals, I'm just going to wrap this up very quickly. So for my goals, I want to read a mixture of genres, which we all know by now. This month I read romance, horror, historical fiction, literary fiction, and fantasy. So, which is very good for me. It's branching out of the thrillers. I did read mainly thrillers, but I branched out and I'm quite happy with that. So for my 2020 challenge, I read The 10,000 Doors of January, which goes for the prompt of a great first line, which is ironic because I didn't like the rest. But the first line was, when I was 7, I found a door. And I thought that was very intriguing and I really wanted to read more. And I really like that. So I put that in there. And then we have an addition from a previous month. Alice in Wonderland has gone for a book that's mentioned in another book, because Alice in Wonderland was mentioned about 50,000 times in the 10,000 Doors of January. So that's also been added. So I'm getting very close to actually crossing that off. And then when I say I want to read at least one James Patterson a month, I did. I read $10 Million Marriage Proposal, which is quite sad because that's the only James Patterson. It was a very small one. Bit disappointing. But I still did it, so I'm very happy with that. So that is my wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. And yeah, click the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. Make sure that you click the bell so you're always notified when I post. And I post every Monday, Wednesday and Saturday. So I will see you guys later.